You gonna do the podcast with me today? Oh, okay, I guess so. Anyway, hi. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Gaming Dadcast. I've got my little French bulldog here, Cannoli, who is deciding to do the podcast with me today. So, welcome, Cannoli. If you're joining on any of the various audio platforms that I'll be uploading this to, well, I'm giving you a verbal wave. Hello, hello. Welcome back. And if you're joining on one of the video platforms, as of right now, this recording, I'm choosing just YouTube. So if you're joining on YouTube, hello, welcome. Thanks for joining. So today, this episode, we're going to be talking about Metal Gear Solid. Right there, yeah. Fun fact, that's the original case. That's the game, the original game. That's what I bought in the story that we got today. So that's cool. And we're going to be talking about trophies and achievements. So let's get to it, yeah? When I was 13 years old, to be specific, I was about 13 and a half. And I was spending my winter break with my family in Sacramento, essentially just about every summer and winter when I had long periods of time away from school. My dad would take me to my brother's place, and I would hang out with them. They were in many ways like my direct family. My brother and his wife were like parents to me. They were much older than me, by the way. And their two boys were like brothers. Anyway, confusing familial hierarchy stuff aside, I'd go there whenever I wasn't in school. And I loved that everyone was into games. My nephews both were into video games, and their dad, my brother, confusing I know, was into games as well. I felt comfortable in that household because we all shared a common interest. It was December of 1998 when I was on my few weeks of winter break from school. And there had been a game that I had been keeping my eye on in magazines. Yes, back then that is how I got my gaming information. I vividly remember reading through this magazine where the highlight was Ocarina of Time. But there was an equally in-depth review and walkthrough of Metal Gear Solid. I believe the magazine was Next Generation Magazine, but that's beside the point. I was intrigued by Ocarina of Time, sure, but Metal Gear Solid was so much more my style, and I had a PS1 instead of the N64, so it was hard to be excited for Zelda. Stealth, spies, giant robots. I wanted to play the game so badly. There was one big problem. It was rated mature. How could I play this game, one that held mature content and the attention of a 13-year-old boy? This is how I was able to do it, and the consequences of my actions. This is Metal Gear Solid: Hide Your Shame in a Box. So, I was with my family in Sacramento, and renting games was a big thing at the time. I attempted to pull one over on my brother by having him rent the game from our local Blockbuster. The problem? He was into games and paid attention. He noticed the M rating and began questioning me. Wait, this is mature. Should you be playing this? Well, I think it is rated for one scene where you see a guy's butt, but they actually blur it out anyway, and I think there might be some blood, but not much. My brother eyed me and gave me a response I did not expect. Okay, but I'm going to keep an eye on it, just to make sure. You're getting to an age where you will just start learning about things in life, and it's important you learn to deal with them. But there are some things you just aren't ready for yet. I truly appreciated my brother's response, being an adult with two growing boys who are into video games, even more so. My brother and his wife were wonderful to me, and I see this more the older I get. Anyway, my brother proceeded in renting Metal Gear Solid and made a rule and that the younger of my nephews could not be in the room when the older nephew and I played the game. He would also be checking in throughout, which we both understood. Thus began my love for the MGS series, from the opening cutscene where Snake is torpedoed in under the enemy's radar to the sudden introduction of a cyborg ninja and Revolver Ocelot suffering at his sword. I was all giddy and felt like I was getting away with something when we saw the beaten up guard had his butt blurred out because someone took his clothes. I was blown away by the Psycho Mantis fight and how ingenious it was to swap out the memory card. I learned that thanks to the magazine I had read before. Watching Snake come to grips with who he really was, suffering and enduring torture, watching the loss that would come from battles, the game is still one of my all-time favorites to this day. I must have played through the game 2 or 3 times while we had rented it, but it had to be returned. We returned the game, I finished off the rest of my break with my family, then headed back home. I got back and talked about Metal Gear Solid to anyone who would listen. Well, anyone who wasn't my dad. I couldn't let him know what my brother had allowed. I didn't want him to bring on the ire of our dad, and I certainly didn't want to get in trouble. I felt like I had gotten away with something and was living life on the edge. Look, I know it's nothing big, but for a 13-year-old boy who was always trying to be good, it was a big deal. Life couldn't get better until one day I started to get the urge to play the game again. I had been saving up money from odd jobs I would do, and I was wanting to buy a new game. However, the draw of Metal Gear Solid was too great, and I began hatching a plan to purchase the game through my dad. Since that darn mature rating was still hanging over my head, I had a problem. My dad was not into gaming or really anything related to technology, so I could potentially trick him into getting the game. We lived a long way from anything shopping related. We drove an hour to go to Costco, run a few other errands, pay some bills. Then, finally, I was allowed to go to the mall and to EB Games. We went in, and my dad went and hung out in the corner looking incredibly awkward and uninterested. I walked through the store, looked around, and pretended to peruse. I knew exactly what I was there for, but I didn't want to make it seem that way. I walked around a little, then I started to begin my search in earnest, looking for the Metal Gear Solid game case on the shelves. After a few minutes, I found the glorious white covered case and started my plan. There was no way I could remove the mature logo in the corner of the game case, since it was sealed with plastic and the rating was on the inside of the case. But EB Games would put their own sales stickers on the game plastic seal. I slowly and carefully removed the sticker from its original place, then placed the sticker over the age rating in the front corner. I took a few more minutes, walking around the store with the game in hand, then walked over to my dad. My plan was perfect. If I got busted by my dad, I could just say I didn't see the age rating logo, and I was still paying for the game. My father took the game from my hand, looked it over briefly, then walked to the counter. He turned back to me, signaling to give him what I had saved. Then something unexpected happened. He counted what I saved, making sure I had the full amount. Then he turned to me and gave me back my money. He didn't say a word, but I knew exactly what had happened. He taught me to save up for things I want and rewarded me for my persistence and follow through with my goal by giving me back the money to further save. In short, he was paying for the game as a reward for me. Why? Why did he have to do this act of kindness? I didn't want to learn a lesson. I certainly didn't want to feel bad for my deception. Everything had gone off without a hitch, and we walked back to our vehicle, game in hand. Well, I didn't hurt anybody, and I got my game. It's all okay, I told myself on the long road home. I got home and proceeded to play Metal Gear Solid for the next week or two, over and over again. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was essentially becoming a speedrunner with the game, finding all the quickest paths and edging down my time. I absolutely loved the game, but every day that passed, I felt more and more guilty. I had lied to my dad, been deceptive, and he repaid me with kindness. How dare he? One day, the guilt was simply too much, and I decided I would tell my dad the truth. I was playing a game that was rated mature, and that I had been deceptive in order to get it without him knowing. I walked out of my room, found my dad watching NASCAR, and asked if I could talk with him. I led him back to my room, sat down, and threw my shame out in the open. I spoke for what felt like an eternity, all while looking at his face, trying to discern what he was thinking and feeling. Sometimes my dad had the best poker face in the world, and this was one of those times. I could not figure out how he was going to react. I finished my confession, preparing for the worst, then another surprise from my dad arose. "Thank you for telling me, son. Now, you've already seen what this game has in it. You understand this is fake, not reality, right?" "Yes, of course. There wasn't anything in the game I didn't already know about." "Well, that may be, but know that I don't want you playing games that have really bad stuff in them." I never really knew what his parameters were, but that was all my dad said. He stood up, put his hand on my shoulder briefly, then walked out of the room. I was in complete and utter disbelief. No punishment. I got to keep my game. I also learned something very valuable that day. My father, seeing my mistakes and deception, knew who I was and my personality. He knew I had prepared for the worst punishment, and obviously could see I felt truly bad about my action. Not just saying that I was. He instead chose to be firm, but still act in kindness. He didn't follow what I thought to be the normal way to handle a child in a situation like mine. This taught me to view my two kids in their own ways. How I may discipline one may not apply to the other. It also taught me to show compassion at any time. Sure, be firm and make your point very clear, but show your child kindness so that they may hopefully mimic what you do. My dad saw my shame, but still rewarded me in a way because I had gone to him instead of him finding out from other avenues. He wanted to instill in me to be honest with him and to own up to my mistakes. With that, Metal Gear Solid would be one of my favorite games and one that I hold dear to my heart. So, in this episode, I want to talk about trophies and achievements and kind of relating it back to my kids because, in recent times we kind of had, some run-ins with this. So, if I remember correctly, the first achievement implementation was in the Xbox 360 era. And it had something to do with Old Spice, I want to say. Something along the lines of get an achievement score of 1,500 and get $10 in your digital wallet, sponsored by Old Spice. Something like that. Outside of Old Spice sponsoring an event where gamers would have to be playing games quite a bit in a short amount of time to get the deal, I remember thinking this was such a cool concept. I get rewarded by simply playing the games that I bought. That event was the hook, and ever since, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I am an achievement junkie. I love them. When they were first introduced, I remember doing my absolute best to play the games that had them and to get that score. I cannot tell you if I reached that goal or not, but I gained an addiction to a feature that is now commonplace in gaming. Well, outside of Nintendo games, that is. But as I've gotten older and I see my two kids growing alongside the gaming world, I've had to ask myself, are achievements and trophies hurting or helping at this point? Do these added accomplishments pull away from the main game experience? I mean, trying to get as many achievements in one run of a game is the best way to start, right? Or do they simply add more game time to the core game, thus creating more interaction from the player? Push the player to get better and give some kind of dopamine rush of extra accomplishment. Maybe it's both? One thing is sure, achievements have now almost become a part of the core experience of a game in modern gaming. Recently, my son got really into a game called Bugsnax. I had played when it first released and was on PS Plus, and I enjoyed my time with it. It was fun enough, but what garnered more playtime for me were the trophies. This was before the DLC that came much later, but I was able to platinum the game. When you platinum a game on a PlayStation console, it means you've gotten every trophy available. I enjoyed the game enough, and the trophies added value for me. When my oldest got super obsessed with the game, most of his time with the game was just messing around and figuring things out. But there was a certain point where he made a conscious decision to start trophy hunting. He was looking up how to get certain trophies, coming to me for other trophies, and figuring out some of them on his own. It was kind of cool, honestly. It reminded me when I was a kid, when I was younger, and I'd take notes where I found secrets in games and create my own guides. Along with this, though, came some down times. There were probably 3 to 4 times where my son was ready to give up because a trophy seemed way too hard to get or would take too long. I had to have a discussion with him about it just to get him back on track. I told him that the trophies are purely optional, so if he really wanted to, he could just finish the game. And after he thought about it, he decided he didn't want to do that, so we went back to his trophy hunting. He moved on to the DLC stuff, nabbing the trophies related to it, then came back to the main story. After getting every trophy he could, he went into the end game of Bugsnax and scored the final trophies. What's funny is the double-edged sword that came from him finishing the game. He was so proud of getting the platinum trophy and his accomplishment of sticking it out. But if I were to ask him how the game ended, I don't believe he could really tell me. So he didn't really pay attention to the main game ending and was super focused on trophies. Is this good or is this bad? Trophies and achievements work best when they add to a game. I never trophy or achievement hunt when they are some wacky, outlandish things that would take way too long to complete. If achievements don't detract from the core game, but add a reason to replay or go back through and get better at certain tasks, then that is a sweet spot. Or there are the ones of my favorite types are of achievement, the ones that you get by simply playing the game. For example, collecting a certain amount of in-game currency or taking down a certain number of enemies. I love these passive achievements so long as they aren't stupidly obscene to get. I'm looking at you, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. But as much as I enjoy achievements and trophies, I don't think many of them are implemented well. A lot of games I will look at the trophy list and instantly decide, nah, I'm not going to try. All because of a handful of trophies that I simply don't want to do. Or perhaps don't think I can. Again, a good example of this is more recent. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I love the Borderlands games. Well, I love Borderlands 1, 2, and kind of the pre-sequel, but Borderlands 3 sucked. And Wonderlands is very okay. I got really bored with the game, but thought, I enjoy playing with my friends, so I'm sure I can get a plat. However, there is one trophy that instantly turned me off to it. Gathering an absurd amount of money to upgrade everything. This trophy stopped what might have been more game time. Now, I fully understand this is a me thing, but I was willing to continue playing this game that was very mid to me just to get those last trophies. This is bad for a couple of reasons. One, I don't find that additional gameplay I can in other games with good trophies achievements, but also, I'm not focused on the core game anymore. The trophies became the main course for me, rather than a side dish or a dessert. I have to be careful not to get hyper focused on trophies at the start of a game. In fact, I've set my own rules to play through a game once before looking at the trophy/achievement list. It's a very thin line to walk, an achievement that adds to the core game without detracting from it. It seems more often than not, achievements are either too easy to get or too hard or ridiculous to get. Which brings me back to the original question I asked myself. Are achievements a good thing or are they a bad thing? After watching my son struggle through them and come out on top, getting his first platinum and seeing the pride he had for his accomplishment, I think it answered the question for me. Sure, there are cons to achievements and trophies, and when done badly, they can become completely useless or even distract the player from the main game. But overall, I think they're a good thing. Something that can add value to the game, motivate players to get better or to persevere, and just a little something extra to get that feeling of accomplishment. So, yeah, I like achievements. That's it for today. Thanks for hanging out as I work through this new format, this new process, trying new things, trying to shake things up a little bit. Let me know. Reach out, put comments if you're on YouTube. Reach out to me. You can try to hit me up on Twitter. I'm not really on Twitter as much anymore, but Instagram. I'm on TikTok. Oh my gosh, I'm on TikTok. I can't believe I'm saying that. But you can hit me up on TikTok, or you can head over to the YouTube channel and just comment away. But what do you think? What is your first game your first mature game that you tried? Or maybe you've never tried a mature game. That would be kind of cool, yeah? Let me know. And what do you think about trophies and achievements? Are they good? Are they bad? What do you think? Anyway, till next time, catch you later. Peace out. And have a great day. See ya.